Hey, what is going on, folks? My name is Hellbent, and in this tutorial I'm going to show you how to create your own quick launch script. This script will make it so that way you can pre-program a bunch of different folders or scripts or web pages or files, etc., that you have easy access to launch them. So if you do a lot of scripting or whatever, you probably have tons and tons of different folders, subfolders, etc. So if you want to find a particular script, it might take you 10 minutes to find it if you find it at all. Perhaps you have some favorite web pages that you use. Perhaps you might have folders that are buried that you commonly access. Perhaps you're doing this or that. We're going to look at a simplified version of creating a script that does that for you. A couple of days ago I had released my own version of this, but I realized that there's perhaps some of you that it wouldn't work for. Perhaps you have a version of Windows that doesn't allow for transparent overlays, etc. Perhaps you have your vision isn't great and the font is a little bit too small for you, or perhaps you have a multi-monitor setup with one of the monitors going into negative numbers, etc. So this is, I'll leave a link in the description. So before you take this tutorial, if all you really want is the kind of program that does that, I suggest you check out this program and see if you can actually run it. Rather than going through, this tutorial, which is probably going to be an hour long. Well, you see the length of this video. That's how long this tutorial is going to be. And this has features that won't necessarily have. So what this does, like I said, what it does is I have this window that's at the side of the screen. I can lock it down, and if I want to run a particular program or script or whatever, all I have to do is just open it, go to the proper tab, and then let's say I just put a pizza in the oven and I want to set a stopwatch or alarm clock to tell me when 20 minutes is up. I run my stopwatch, I change the alarm, and boom, Bob's your uncle, right? So rather than me trying to find where I put this damn thing on my computer, I have it right there. I can always access it. Perhaps I'm doing scripting and I need to get the color of something, so I can run my color picker script, right? And then just get the color of whatever's on the screen. Maybe I have some web pages and maybe my browser's full with I've already filled it up with millions and millions of things that I might someday want to come back to, and the organization is all out of whack or whatever. I can, add, let's see, this one. Maybe I want to put my email addresses in here, and for my email addresses, perhaps what I can do is I can create a script, and that script actually launches the browser and navigates to my email page and then actually logs me into my email page, and then I include the script into this program, and in this program, when I hit Gmail, it actually, instead of just navigating to that page where I have to log in, instead it's launching that script that does all that stuff for me. So that just gives you an idea of what kind of program we're going to be writing in this. And this is going to be a very minimalistic program. There's multiple things that you can do to improve it afterwards, but we'll get through some of the core elements. Why am I going to be deciding on the things that I'm doing? Reasons. I flipped a coin. I said, okay, I have a choice here. What am I going to do to make this do this? I'll flip a coin. Okay, that's the reason why. So if you have a question of why I am doing a particular thing rather than doing something else, the reason is because reasons. Okay, so let's go ahead and create this script, or go through this tutorial. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to create a new script. I have a new folder. I'm just going to go create a new AutoHotkey script, and I'm going to call this Quick Run Mini.ahk. I'm going to open it to edit and get rid of the first 4 lines of code. I'm going to try to keep this as quick as possible while still explaining what I'm doing and why I'm doing it, but there's only so much I can do. I'm a slow typer, and when the camera is rolling, if you don't believe me, try this yourself. Once the camera rolls, your brain does not work. Your brain does not work, especially when you're trying to think and plan. As you can see, I don't have any cheat sheet here that's going to tell me what I have to do. So this is just making it up as I go. I've done this before, so I kind of know the kind of things I need to do, but there's a chance I'll get stuck on something. There's a chance I might not explain something as well as I would like to because I'm already thinking ahead of what I have to do next, etc., etc. So anyways, let's jump into it. First thing I'm going to do is I'm going to make the script single instance, and this, if you're not aware, just makes it so that way if the script is already running and I try to run it again, close the old one and run the new one. This is great for testing. The next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to create an emergency hotkey to exit out of this script at any time. Now, we don't really need this, but I find it a good practice for me that if I have some way of exiting a script, just in case, I don't know, something happens. Maybe part of the script is actually taking control of my keyboard or my mouse, and I have to emergency quickly exit. So by default, I'll usually add an emergency exit. If later on you don't need it, you can comment it out, you can get rid of it, etc., etc. But to start with, I always like to start with adding a emergency hotkey. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to make it, if I press Control plus Shift plus number pad 1, because I don't think I have that for a hotkey for something else, we are going to exit app. So that's my emergency exit. The next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to exit out of the auto execute area. There's a couple of things that I need to add afterwards. I don't really need to have this. Yeah, actually I do need this return. So we're going to, right now, everything's going to execute up in here as soon as I launch the script. Most of the script is going to be in hotkeys and in labels and functions, etc., etc. So let's just add in a return so that way it breaks up our script. Now, what I want to do is I want to have this tool to be so that way if I press a particular hotkey, that it launches a little interface that I use to run the program. So the one that I just released the other day, and like I said, I'll leave a link to this in the description. I'll leave a link to the video that tells you how to set it up and everything in the description. There is nothing to download for this. As long as you have AutoHotkey, it's just copy and paste the script. Hit my mic. But I'll leave a link to this in the description. This always sits on my screen, but the one we're going to do today will make it so that way in order to get access to the interface, you have to press a hotkey. Pressing the hotkey launches the interface and then blah blah blah. So let's create a hotkey. Now I'm going to pick a hotkey that I might like to use. This might be something that you don't want to use. Perhaps you want to use a different hotkey, so go ahead and set your hotkey to be whatever you want. I'm going to do Shift plus wheel up. So if I'm holding down Shift and I use the mouse wheel up, it's going to launch this. Inside of here, we're going to build a GUI. Because we have it set up so that way a hotkey is going to be building the GUI, there's a good chance, and in fact, because it's on the wheel up, it's going to rebuild this over and over and over again. And because our GUI is going to have variables in it, if we try to launch that window when it already exists, it's going to error out our script. So the first thing we're going to do in here is we're going to say that destroy the window if it exists or if it doesn't exist. So I'm going to call my window, I'm going to name it, or I'm going to call it GUI1. And what we're going to do is as soon as we press the wheel up, we're going to destroy that window. Destroy GUI1. So if it exists, it's going to destroy it. If it doesn't exist, nothing's going to happen. The next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to set some options for the window. And I think the only option I really want is to set it to always on top. The next thing I'm going to do is, I don't like the gray default color, so I'm going to set the background color to black. But you can change it to whatever you want, or you can leave it the gray, etc., etc. So GUI color, black. The next thing I'm going to do is just to make sure that the hotkey is working the way I want it to and everything, I don't have any problems yet. I'm just going to show the GUI. Afterwards, I'm going to let it size itself, but because I want to just show it right now, I'm going to give it a temporary width of, let's say, 400 pixels and a temporary height of 400 pixels. And I'm going to name this window Quick Run. Good enough for me. Okay. So there we go. We have enough to run the program. Now, what if we close the window? So what if we hit the X on that? We don't actually want it to close out of our script. We just want the GUI to close. So by default, if we don't add anything in, it's just gonna do that on its own. Like, it'll just close the window. But I don't know what happens in the background once that happens. So to see, maybe we can get some better performance if we actually destroy the window versus not destroy the window. What we'll do is we'll check to see if if you hit the red X, we'll just destroy the window. Because I don't know if it makes any performance enhancement or makes it perform better, but it's going to be 3 lines of code. Is it really going to hurt us to put 3 lines of code? I don't think so. So up here, we're going to do GUI close, and all we're going to do is GUI 1 destroy. Next thing we're going to do is just return. Okay, so we have enough to run our program to see if we get our window by hitting the hotkey that you've selected. So go ahead, save, or just run if you have this editor, and it automatically saves. Okay, so nothing happens unless we use the hotkey. So my hotkey, oh wait, no. I don't want control plus wheel up, I want shift plus wheel up. Because control plus wheel up is zoom on many things. So I'm going to change that to shift, so plus wheel up, which is shift. I'll run it again, and now if I hold shift and then wheel up, we should get a window. And if I keep going it should destroy it and respawn it. And then if I close it, the program's still running in the background, which is, this one right here. So if I do it again, it's back. So this is where we're going to launch our programs from. And anytime, so if I'm doing something, blah blah blah. Oh, you know what? I want to check YouTube. I'll click this, go to the appropriate button, blah blah blah, launch. Okay. The way we can set up this next part is there's multiple different setups we can do. Many different kinds of controls that we can use. I have to make a decision on what control I am going to use. Ultimately, I have to make a decision to move forward. So I'm going to make a decision, and the reason I picked it is arbitrary. It's just what I chose. That's it. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to use list box to display the different kind of programs that we can have. And I'm going to create, for simplicity, I'm going to make this script have two different subsections. So in this one here, it has 9 subsections, and then each one of those has its own list of things within that subsection. So for this tutorial, I'm going to create 2 subsections, but you can create 20 subsections, right? So you can have 20 different categories of things, so you can organize how everything's split up. If you want, you can have it set so that way you have tabs. So on your window here, you have a bunch of different tabs, and in each of those tabs it has the list of programs that you can run related to that category, etc., etc. I'm not going to do that. If you want to do that, you can go ahead. If you don't know how to make tabs, I do have a GUI mini tutorial on making tabs and a bunch of other things. Okay, so let's go ahead and add in some of those controls. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to separate everything by group boxes, and I'm going to use the group box to denote or suggest what the category is. So GUI add group box. I'm going to position it at X10, Y10. I'm going to give it a width of 320 and a height of 300, and the height I'll probably change afterwards. You know what? I don't want it so big. So let's go, I'm going to go with 220. Now the size of this, the size of all of this stuff is going to depend on your font. So determine, I'm just going to use the default font to make this tutorial a little bit quicker, but if you need the font to be a little bit bigger, if you want to change the color, if you want to make it bold, etc., etc., I do have a tool on my channel, on my homepage. If you navigate to a playlist or a section that's called scripts, in that section I have a tool called GUI font tool that you can get, and this will give you a list of all the different fonts that you can use, so you can play around with different fonts to see. So if I want to check out, let's see, if this one here. So if I want to use this, if I want to check what does this look like if the text color is maroon, what if the background is silver, what if the background is lime green, etc., etc. What does it look like if I make it bold? What does it look like if I have an underline on it, etc., etc. Right? So this tool is available on my channel, and you can select. That makes selecting your font a little bit easier, but I don't need to use that because I'm not going to be changing the font. So I have my group box. I'm going to make this the start of a section, and I'm going to put the text in it that denotes what this section is. So I'm going to call the first one we're going to make will be web pages. So if I want to have a list of web pages that I use all the time, I can add this to my program and then just pick the appropriate one and launch it. Web pages, and we will, because my GUI is black and because the text is by default black, inside of here what I will do is I will change the text color of this to white. And now we'll run a test to see how this kind of looks on the screen. Alright, there we go. So this is where we're going to put our first grouping. And the first thing we're going to add is a list box. Or the first thing I'm going to add is a list box. And like I said, there's multiple different ways you can do this. You can use this as a starting point to build your own ideas. List box, I'm going to position it at XS plus 10 and YS plus 20. Once again, depending on what font you're going to be using, you might need to use different placements. I'm going to set its width to be, because I'm going to have it 10 pixels over from there, and this is 220, I'll set its width to 200. 200, and for its height, depending on how many, so let's say my list is 50 items, but I don't want to show all 50 items. I have a list box here, but how many of those do I want to have on the screen at once? So let's say let's say 5. I'm going to make it display 5 of the items in that list. The next thing we're going to do is we're going to have 2 lists for every category. So for web pages, there's going to be a list that just shows its name of the thing that we're going to be launching. So for example, if we're launching YouTube, it'll just say YouTube or YouTube homepage or blah blah blah, right? And then there's going to be another list that actually contains the address, the web address of that page. And we're going to tie those 2 lists together based on their position. So if the first list has something called option that says to launch YouTube, in the second list, in the first position, also there's going to be the address. So we're going to take the whatever position we select from our list box and use that to run our web page address. So to do that, we just need to change this to Alt Submit. So that way we're using the position within our list rather than the text that's in our list. Next, we'll associate this with a variable that we will call web box, because it's, I don't know, it's a variable inside of our web box. And we could make it so that way it submits this value right away, but instead what we'll do is we'll have it so that way we have to press a button, and then when we press that button it'll submit that value. So let's go and just get ready to add our list. So right now we'll set everything up and then we'll create our list. So the next thing that we want now is a button that if we hit that button, it's going to execute our subroutine that does all the work for us. So we'll do GUI 1 add button, and we'll position it. I'm going to position it at XS plus 10 again. So I'll position it underneath this list. I'm going to take wherever the last control ended, and I'm just going to add 10 pixels to that, so Y plus 10. And the width, I'll make it the same size. You know, I'll make it only 100 pixels wide. So what I'll do is I'll take this position here, and I'm going to make this 60. So the button's going to be 100 pixels, but it'll sit in the center of the list box underneath it. So it'll be centered. So we'll make the width of the button 100 pixels, and we'll make its height 20. Once again, with the height and everything like this, if you're using other font, you're probably going to have to change this. You could just let this size itself, whatever size it wants to be, that's the size it is, right? But I'm going to hard code it. I'm going to attach this to a label that I'm going to call run web page. And we'll say we'll put some text on it that will say run web page. Okay, we'll take this G label and we'll go up and create that subroutine. Before I do that, so I have this in my clipboard right now. Before I do that, what we'll do is, because by default this variable here doesn't have a starting value, to make it have a starting value, whatever is like pre-selected right away when we start. So when we create our list, we'll make it so that one of the items in the list is already pre-selected. What we'll do is, to make sure that this variable knows what that item is right after our show, we'll do GUI 1 submit, no hide. So as soon as we run the script, it automatically will dump the value into that variable. Now I'm going to take this G label here and come up here and create it. Now I have a particular order of how I structure my scripts. I have the auto execute area, and then I have my labels, and then if I have functions, I put my functions, and then after that, if I have any hotkeys, I put my hotkeys. So I always write my script with the exact same format every single time. So this is a hotkey, so I want all my labels above that. But you don't have to have the same layout that I do. But if you're wondering why I'm putting this here, it's because reasons. Okay, so what is going to happen when we press our button? The first thing we need to happen is, because we don't have our list box attached to any labels, so it's not automatically updating what we select within that list box. The first thing we need to do is submit the item that we have selected into that variable. Okay. Let me think. One thing I'll point out is the way I'm going to build this isn't the most efficient way. Like we could, when I add the other group to this, because like I said, I'm going to add 2 for this demo. Where I'm going to add 2 categories. We could do it so that way everything works out of one subroutine, and we can just write our code so that way it knows when to do what and grab values from variables and can get the control that's currently active, and then depending on what control I'm gonna make this super simple. This is going to expand out the code a little bit, but it does make it a lot easier for you to follow along. So if you want to, you can take this and put everything all into one nice little package of one subroutine, but for this I'm going to have multiple subroutines. So if we want to, so one button is going to be for web pages, and then another button is going to be for programs and scripts, etc. So we're going to have 2 different subroutines for 2 different categories. But you could do the code so that way you can fit everything. You can fit 100 different subroutine, 100 different sections into one subroutine, and just check the last control that was clicked and blah blah blah. Do your GUI control get and etc. etc. Do a GUI event, etc. etc. Anyways, like I said, we're going to split it up. So if we hit the button that says run the web page that we currently have selected, we're going to submit that value into the variable, and then what we're going to do is we're going to try to run the program that we selected. What we'll do is we'll put a catch condition in here as well. So if for whatever reason, perhaps you have your script and you haven't used it in a long time, and you moved or deleted one of the items or whatever, blah blah blah, we'll make it so that way it tells you it's not only not just going to run the script, so the program. So let's say you have it to run a calculator, right? Rather than it just, if the calculator has been moved or blah blah blah, it can't run it. Rather than it just not running it, we'll actually make it say, hey, you know what? There was a problem. It didn't run. I have a very specific indentation that I like. Okay. In here, what we will do is we'll just pop up a message box, and we'll have a generic error. Actually, you know what? Let's go ahead and we'll create a message box that actually has the sound and everything. So if you have Site, you should have this thing up here, message box creator. And I'm just going to do exclamation point and always on top, and there we go. That's my code for that, and there we go. If we have an error, it will catch. Okay, now we need, how are we going to build our program? Because right now there is nothing in it. So in fact, I think we can run without having any errors. So let's try that. Oh, we do have an error. Line 14. Yeah, okay, so I'm going to comment that. And let's see, can we run? Okay, so if I use my mouse wheel, shift plus mouse wheel up, this is our GUI. And then afterwards I'll adjust everything. Now what we need to do is actually create the lists that we're going to be using. So there's multiple ways that you can do this. You can have it set up so that way you're writing to an INI file or a text document. You can have it update. You can have sections within the program here that you have an edit field, so you can add new things right from this window. Blah 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 blah. But to make this video faster, what we're going to do instead is everything is going to be hard coded into our script. So we're going to create lists within our script in arrays and in variables, etc., that if after if let's say I create the program today and then tomorrow I want to add a new program to it, I actually just have to open up this in edit mode and then edit things into the lists that we're creating, and then save it, run it again, and then if in a month I want to add another thing to my thing, I just open this up and edit and add the things to the lists. There is easier ways to use by doing files and blah 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 blah, but that'll take a little bit longer for this video, and this video is already going to be long enough. So we're not going to do that. We're just going to hard code. So let's create a list. So I'm going to create 2 matching lists. So I'm going to call the first one web list 1. And this one is just going to be a pipe delimited list that I'm going to display within the list box. And this is just the names of the web pages that I want to launch. So to do that, because I hate typing all the symbols and everything, I actually have a tool that I made because I'm lazy like that. And this is available on my page, by the way. So auto objects. So if you want this, if you go to my home page in the section called scripts, this auto objects version 1.4 is in it. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to be creating a pipe delimited list, and for now I want this hidden. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to click somewhere besides one of the edit boxes. I'm going to click like here, and that's going to give me a little small little tab, so I can keep it on the screen, and if I need to switch to it, Bob's your uncle. Switch between them. Okay. To make my list, because I literally hate creating lists, I'm going to use Notepad. And then afterwards I can use my auto object to actually create my list. So I'm going to get rid of this because we're going to create it from here. So let's see, I'm just going to create a couple of web pages. So let's say if I want to add my YouTube. If I want to add my YouTube page. What if I want to use the YouTube homepage? What if I want to use the AutoHotkey homepage? What if I want to use the AutoHotkey forums in here? What if I want the AutoHotkey forum subsection ask for help or whatever? Then I can add that in, blah blah blah, whatever. So we got 4 items that we'll use to create our little demo, and you can create as many items as you want. And now that I have my little list there, what I'm going to do is I'm going to create another list that's going to represent the actual address. Now, with the address, if I want the web page to open in my default browser, I don't need to specify any browser. But let's say if I want it to if I want this particular web page to open in this particular browser, and that particular browser isn't my default browser, then I just specify which browser I want it to open in. So for example, if I want the web page to open in Internet Explorer, I type out ie.exe and then a space and then the web page. If I want it to open up in Firefox, I would do firefox.exe and then space and then the web page. If I want to open it in Chrome, I type out chrome.exe space and then the web address. If I want it to go to whatever default web page I have, you don't have to do that. So my default is Chrome, so I'm just going to type out the way I would do it if I want to go to my default. So the first one is Civ Reborn YouTube. So I'm just going to navigate to that page. I'm going to copy that. And there is my first item. The second item is a very easy one. It's just www.youtube.com. The third one is AutoHotkey, is www.autohotkey.com. The next one is the AutoHotkey forum. That is www.autohotkey.com/boards. Okay, so there's my list. Now I just need to create them. So let's go back to my script. I'm going to open up my auto object, bring up my notepad, move this down, and the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to create the pipe list. So this is the list of names that I'm going to be using. I'm going to use, because some of these things have spaces in them, I'm going to use the double space delimiter. So that way I actually have to use 2 spaces in order to create a new item. And I'm going to use the auto clip ability. So that way all I have to do is just come up here and Control C, and that gets added. Control C, Control C, Control C. Because I'm using the auto clip, it automatically moved me to the next space. So when I'm done my list, I just need to go to the end and get rid of the trailing space or double space if I'm using double space. Now that I have my list, I'm going to give it a name. What did I call this? I called this web list 1 clipboard. Come up here, boom, Bob's your uncle. Next list. Gonna delete this. This time I want an array with strings because everything's going to be in strings. So I'm going to create an array with strings. I'm going to call this one web list 2. I'm going to use double space delimiter. I'm going to use auto clip add. And I am going to, in the same order that this is. So this is Civ Reborn YouTube, so I'm going to copy that one. The same order. So this is 1, 1, 2, 2, 3, 3, 4, 4. Their position is important. Alright, I'm going to copy that. Copy that. Copy that. And copy that. Isn't making objects so much easier? And boom, done. I didn't have to type out quote, blah, 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 comma, quote, quote. And it's even better if you have objects. Like objects, I can do, if I just don't care about the keys, I can create, how many keys do I want? I want to have 10 keys. Boom. Now let's see if, let's say if I'm doing X, Y, blah, 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 if I want numbers. 2, 2, space, oh wait, I'm going to get rid of that. 2, 2, 3, 3, 4, 4, 5, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 1, 2, 3. Boom, I have an object with strings. Boom, so easy. Okay, so anyways, that's how you use that. That's why I like it. Let's see. So we've created our 2 lists now. The first one just is what we're going to be displaying, and the second thing is what's actually going to get executed. So let's go ahead and add web list 1 to be displayed in our list box. And boom, Bob's your uncle. Now what happens? So let's go ahead and display that now. So this is our list now, and if we had, so right now our thing can show 5 items, but if our list was 20 items long, as soon as our list gets below the 5 that's displayed, we'll get a slider. So, but we only have 4 items in our list, so blah blah blah. And we can select whatever we want, and then when we hit run web page, it executes our code up there. So let's decide what happens when we hit our button. When we hit our button, it's going to try to run the program that is in web list 2. And this is an array, so what we're going to be doing is we're going to be trying to run the thing that is in the position that our web box ended up having. So if we select the first item, web box equals 1. If we selected the second item, web box equals 2, and etc., etc. So we're going to take this web box and we are going to use that position of its value to run. So if it was 1, if web box was 1, which means we had this one selected, it's going to run the thing that is in our array in the first position. So let's go ahead and try, see if our program runs. So if I hit the AutoHotkey homepage, run web page, we should open up to AutoHotkey homepage. If we want to do the AutoHotkey forum, we run that web page and it should navigate to AutoHotkey community boards, etc., etc. If I want to go to the YouTube homepage. If I want to go to my page, I go to my page, etc., etc. Okay, so that's web pages. Now we'll create one more. We'll tighten this up a little bit. We'll get rid of this sizing here, and we'll allow it to size itself. And in our group box, we'll adjust the height so that way it sits a little bit closer up there. So we'll try 200 for the group box, or I'm going to try 200 to make it sit closer to the button. And it's still way off, so I'm going to try 100. And that's closer, but I don't like how that's sitting. So let me try. Oh, I see what's going on. I went too small. So let's try 120. I was wondering, why does the button look like that? 120, let's try 130. Boom, I'm happy with that. Perfect. All right. Let's go through and now see how we add programs. So I'm going to take this code here and I'm going to copy all of it because I'm a slow typer. No use retyping out everything. I'm going to paste that in and we're going to edit this. So this section, I'm going to take this was a section, so its X position is XS. So if I was to type XS, it would mean start at X10. What I'm going to do is I'm going to take the width of this group box and I'm going to add 10 pixels. So I'm going to start where it started at XS, and then I'm going to add to that the width of this window or this group box plus how many pixels I want to have as open space between it. So I want 10 pixels beside it, so we'll put this at 230. So X section plus 230 to be the beginning of our next one. We'll leave it at Y10, the width the same, the height the same. Okay, next line, list box. XS plus 10, no problem. YS plus 20, no problem. Width, no problem. That, no problem. That, no problem. This one is we need to change. We're going to, wait. This one here, we're going to change to programs. So that's going to be our section. We're going to call this the variable associated with our list box. We're going to call programs box. And we're going to display a list that we're going to create afterwards. So let's get rid of this, and I know what I'm going to call it. I'm going to call it basically the same naming convention I have there. So this was web pages and it's called web list. This is programs, so I'll call it programs list. Program list. Now let's go programs list. We're going to attach this to a new label. And before I do that, I'm actually going to change this. Run program. And we're going to attach this to a label called run program. I'll take that. Come up here. Paste that in. And because the code is virtually going to be identical, I'm just going to copy this and paste it in. Like I said, we could make it so that way we use the same label for all of them, but there could be reasons, and I'll go into, for example, let's say that for web pages, what I want is that when I click this and say run, I want it to actually close this page, the quick run program. But for programs, I want it to actually stay up. So in the web pages one, we'll say GUI 1 destroy. So as soon as I press the button to run a web page, it's going to destroy the window and then launch that program. But for my programs, I want it to actually keep this on the screen so I can launch other programs as well. But once again, you could actually still put that in all into one subroutine, blah, blah, blah. Okay, so I know that I'm going to be calling this, is it programs or, yeah, programs list 2. Programs list 2, and the thing that we're going to be doing is the programs box. So whatever position the item from our programs box, that's what we're going to be running. So if we select the first item, it'll run programs list item number 1, blah, blah, blah. Let's go ahead and create our lists. To make it simpler for you, what you can do is add some comments so that way you can highlight where different things are. So for example, now I have my second list, and then after that, if I'm adding a third list, this will just make it easier to find the things afterwards. Because okay, let's say I've had this for a week, and now I want to add a new web page. In order for me to do that, we're going to add a button afterwards, so that way it gets you here. But to actually update it, what you actually have to do is come into your list. So for the first list, if I want to add a new item, hold on, back up. Let's pick one of these items to be the thing that runs from the beginning. Oh. So I'm going to make it so that way the AutoHotkey homepage is the item that's pre-selected by adding in a double pipe after it. So now the next time I run this, when it starts, it's going to look like that. Okay. Now, like I said, if in a week I want to add a new web page to this, I'll first come up here, type in the name that I want to have displayed here, and then I come into here and add the address. And then save the script and then run the script again to have the updates. Oh yes, after the name there I would need a pipe. So end with the pipe. So that's how you would add new programs to this. Like I said, there's other ways that you can do it. You can build it into your interface, so that way you have all this stuff is part of a text file or an ini file, and when you run the script to begin with, it grabs all that information, puts it into these lists, and then blah blah blah. If you add something, it'll save it to it, and everything else not. Right? We're not doing that. We're hard coding everything right here. Okay. So let's create our next lists. I'm going to open up my notepad, and I'm going to get rid of this stuff here, and let's come up with some programs to run. The first program I guess I can do is, because I know the address to it, is, pause. Adding the programs can be a bit of a pain in the butt. So to make it a little bit easier to add programs, what we're going to do is we're going to create a little button, a little subroutine that when we press that button, it's going to allow us, so that way all we have to do is press a hotkey, select the item, the program that we want to add. So let's say if we want to add a program in a folder, we'll go to that folder, pick the executable for that program or the script or whatever, select it, and then we'll press a hotkey and it'll put into our clipboard the full path to that program. So let's do that first. So I think we should not have an error yet, because we haven't added the lists in yet, so I don't know, we'll see. So we'll see what it looks like now. So this is what it looks like now with two lists. One is for web pages, one's going to be for programs, and we can, like I said, we could have had this in tabs. So tab 1 is web pages, tab 2 is programs, so we can make our window smaller, etc., etc. Right, but we're not going to be worrying about that. What we will do though is at the very bottom of our script, outside of our group boxes, we're going to add a couple more buttons. the first thing we're going to do is we're going to create a checkbox, because it's going to be a little bit confusing the first couple of times you run it. Because the layout, you can change the layout. You can put the buttons, these buttons off to the side so they're a little bit more clear on what they do, blah, 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 right? But what we'll do for this demo is we're going to just add a checkbox. And this checkbox, all it's going to do is the next two buttons that we're going to add, we're going to have them start off disabled. And if you want to actually press one of those buttons, you have to hit the checkbox to re-enable them. So you don't accidentally hit one of these two buttons, because the first couple of times you run this, it's going to look a little bit weird to you. Your eyes aren't used to looking at it. So we'll add a checkbox that locks the other buttons down. Checkbox, we're going to position it at X10. We'll let it... let's see where it goes. Let's see where it goes right now. Okay, perfect. It's going where I want it to go. We'll do... Actually, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to do Y section plus... so Y section is 10. The height is 130, so I'm going to add another 20 pixels to that, so that's 130, 140, 160. I'm going to try 160. Why? Nope, 150. I forgot that I actually added that in. So I'm going to make it a couple, see if how that looks. A little bit better. Gives a little bit of space from our thing up there. Maybe I'll change that a little bit. 45. Good enough. I'm going to attach this to a variable that I'm going to call... You know, actually, I'm going to give it a width just so that way, depending on... Nah. Okay, I'm just going to attach this to a variable. I'm going to call it lock. And... I'm going to attach this to a subroutine that I'm going to call submit all. And I'll come up here and I'll create that subroutine. All this subroutine is just going to do is update the value of that. And nope. Forget that. I'm going to call the subroutine unlock. All right. I'm going to put some text on here, and I'm going to say unlock, because we'll start with the locked position, so we'll say unlock is the text that's so unlock, if it's checked, it means unlock. Okay, yeah. You can change the text to make it more clear to you. We're going to start with a value of 0, so it doesn't have a value. Inside of the unlock subroutine, what we're going to do is we're going to say that lock equals not lock. I'm not sure if I'm going to have any issues using a variable that's something meant for something else, but we'll see. You know what? Let's just change it. Lock 1, lock 1, lock 1. There, no issues. So what we're going to do is if lock 1, or in other words, if lock 1 equals 1. So actually, I'll just type that out so it's more clear. If lock 1 equals 1, we are going to unlock our buttons. So let's go ahead and create some buttons now. GUI 1 add button. We're going to position this. Let's just go X plus 10. You can play around with the spacing to make it look better. We'll just do X plus 10. We'll have a width of 100. Height of 20, and we're going to attach this to a label that's called edit this script, and we'll put some text on it that says edit. You can change the text on it. So what this is going to do is when we press this button, it's going to open up this script in edit mode, so that way you can add new items to your lists. So because we're going to be enabling and disabling this button needs a variable associated with it. So I'm going to call this edit button. And we are going to, in the options, we're going to set its default to disabled. I'm going to create this subroutine, edit this script, subroutine right here. And now we'll create the next button. We'll just do pretty much the same thing. So X, we'll put it 10 pixels over, width 100, blah, 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 blah. This one is going to be get path. We'll call the variable path button. We'll call this, we'll attach this to a label called get path, and the text on it will be get path. Once again, you can retype this to make it more clear to you what it's going to be doing. So when we press this button, what it's going to do is it's going to enter into a loop that's going to tell us that what we need to do is navigate to the program that we want to add or get the path to, and then select that item, and then press a hotkey to actually put that into our clipboard. So that way we can get its path to create our list a little bit easier. Okay, they're both disabled. So if lock equals 1, because the thing is unlocked, so if lock equals 1, what we're going to do is GUI control. The window is 1, and we are going to enable. Duplicate, and what are we going to be enabling? We're going to be enabling edit button and path button. And then if lock equals 0, we are going to disable our two buttons. Alright, let me make sure I have all the subroutines. No, I'm missing one, so I need to create a subroutine called getPath, or a label called getPath, and I'll just return it for now. Okay, I think we have enough to run our test. So we've added the two new buttons at the bottom. We've attached this to a checkbox that if, because our background is black and our default text is black, inside of the options for the checkbox, let's do it aqua. So these two buttons, now we can't accidentally press them. We'll hit unlock, that unlocks them, and now we can press them. And if we have them unlocked, and if we close this and then run it again, they should be locked again. Okay, perfect. Let's go through the first thing. The first thing we need to do is if we hit the edit button, we're going to launch this script in edit mode. So we're going to try, just in case it fails, we're going to try to run in edit. So if you want to edit something, a Microsoft document, etc., blah, 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 for any of the programs that we're going to be adding later, if you want it to run in edit mode, just type edit before the path to that program. For the path to this program, what we're going to do is, I'm pretty sure that it's already going to be, it'll automatically run this, no problem. But what we'll do is we'll hedge our bets, make sure that there's no problems. We'll set the working directory to be a script directory. A script directory, and then when we run this, what we're going to be running is in edit mode, we're going to be running the path to a working directory, and the name of the file, which is quick run, whatever you called your script. So I called mine quick run mini AHK. Alright, we'll add a catch to this, so that way if it errors, and I'll use the same code I have up here. Alright, let's run a test. I'm going to close this, unlock, edit. Should launch it in the editor. There we go. Perfect. So that's one button done. Let's do the next one. The next one is creating a button that when we press it, it's going to enter into a loop. So up in here, what we will do is, you need to decide how this is going to work. So let's say to make it, for the first time you run this, when you're creating your first list, let's say if you have 50 items, it's going to get kind of annoying that if you have to constantly keep opening up this GUI over and over again to get the paths. So what we'll do, and you can decide if you want to later on comment it out or change it to destroy or whatever. What we're going to do is, as soon as we press this button, we're going to hide this window. So we will do GUI 1 hide. So as soon as we press that button, it's going to hide the window, and then it's going to do what we want next. The next thing we'll do is we'll take our clipboard and we will set it to a value of nothing. We will empty out our clipboard. The next thing we'll do is we will enter into, no, we'll just say while. We'll do a while loop. While, and what we're going to be looking for is while we're not pressing, while get key state does not equal control, CTRL. So while we're not pressing, so as long as we haven't pressed the control key, what we're going to do is we're just going to pop up a tooltip that gives us some instructions. And we're going to say select the and we'll add in a line break. Okay, so we'll display if we press our button, it'll hide the window and then give us a tooltip that says select the program you want to add and then press control. Once the person presses control, our while loop is going to be complete. So we will turn off the tooltip, and then, just in case we have a little bit of an issue with timing, we'll add a little tiny bit of a delay. Why not? Then what we're going to do is we are going to send Control C, and then what we're going to do is because it's really weird how this works, we're going to create a variable called temp, and unless you're used to this really isn't going to make a lot of sense, but unfortunately you have to do this kind of thing. I mean, maybe there is another way of doing it, but whatever. Because our clipboard, we can't just Control V. Like it said Control C, but it's not actually going to give us something that we can paste. So in order for us to be able to paste the path that it just got, what we need to do, you know what? I wonder if I don't need to actually, I'll try it another time. I'm not going to bother trying it now. But I wonder if I don't actually need to do the Control C. Maybe if I just dump it into the clipboard and then put it into a variable and then put that variable into the clipboard. Maybe, I don't know. Anyways, so we're going to say a temporary variable, and it's going to equal the value. Nope. First we're going to sleep. We're going to sleep for 50 milliseconds. Because sometimes it takes a little bit of time for these things to happen. And then what we're going to do is we're going to say temp equals whatever's in the clipboard. And then what we're going to do is we're going to say that the clipboard, actually, you know what, let's sleep again. I don't think we need to, but I'm going to do it anyways. Sleep 50 milliseconds. And then I'm going to say that the clipboard is equal to temp. Alright, so we've said that temp equals clipboard, we wait at 50 milliseconds, and then we said the clipboard equals temp. Right? Weird, right? But in order for us to print it out, or get it into our clipboard in usable fashion, that's what we need to do. Okay, once that's done, what we will do is we will re-show the window. GUI1 show. Okay, so let's test if this is working the way I want it to work. So I've ran the program after I saved it, and I'm going to unlock this, and I'm going to hit get path. The first thing that should happen is this window should hide. Then we should get a tooltip. Okay, and now we will pick a program, select that program, and press Control, and it should remove the tooltip, re-show our window, and put it into our clipboard, the path to that file. And there we go. Okay, if you want, now you notice how it puts this right back into the middle of the screen. Perhaps you don't want that. So what you can do is, if you're using the get path, this is only going to affect it when you use the get path. So you don't have to worry about it being this way all the time. But let's say while I'm doing this kind of procedure where I'm trying to get the path, what I want to happen is when it shows this window again, I actually want it to be off to the side. So I can play around with the X and Y a little bit. So I'm going to go X 800 and Y 50. Alright, and it's only going to that's only going to happen when I'm using the get path. So if I run the program, if I use the get path, it's going to hide the window, and then when I hit Control, it's going to actually show the window up here this time. Okay, so it's up out of the way. I can play around with this, right? So now I can work on my list, and then if I close this and then run it again, it should be back to going back into the center. If I close it, run it again, it's back to the center. It's only if I use the get path, and then it'll do that. So okay, that's that. Let's create our second list now for our second thing. The second list that we're going to create is, the first item is going to be calculator, because I know what its path is, so we don't have to go. It's just a quick item I can add. Calculator. I'll add a couple of scripts that I have. I'll pick a folder that I know has a bunch of different scripts I can get from. Okay, this one here. So this folder here, I know it has a bunch of different programs, so I can get them for this demo. I can get them quickly. I'll do auto object. So I'm creating the list of things that are going to show up here. So it's just the name. I can call it Bob for all it really matters. What else? GUI layout tool. And I can use any programs that I want, right? So, for example, I'm using Calculator. If I want to add Microsoft Paint or Photoshop or blah, blah, blah. And I'll do one more. I'll do clipping tool. Okay, so there's my list. Let's go ahead and create that in my auto objects. So I don't know where that is right now. So here, let's clear out this, and we are creating the list that's going to go into the GUI. So this is a pipe list. I'm going to use double space delimiter, auto clip, and the name of the list is programs list 1. Okay, clipboard, first item, Control C, second item, Control C, third item, Control C, Control C. Get rid of the trailing space, clipboard, Bob's your uncle. Okay, that's the first list. Now creating the second list, which is going to be the address. Now the first item, I know what the address is. I think this only, I think it's how it works is if the item is in your program files, you don't need the full path. But if it's not in your program files, then you do need the full path. So calculator, for example, I think is in my program files, so I can just use its executable. So calc.exe. CALC, I think that's what it is. I think that's what it is. Then the other three items, I need to actually get their path. So I'm going to get rid of that, and let's go here and hit get path. The first item I'm looking for is auto objects, so I'm going to come here, go to auto objects, and we'll do auto objects 4. So I'm going to select the item, hit control, that goes into my clipboard. I'm going to come back to my list, paste that in. The second item in my list is the GUI layout tool, so I'm going to hit get path, come here, go back to GUI layout tool, and I'm going to pick, doesn't matter, let's pick that one. Control, come to my list, dump it in. The next one, get path, we are going for clipping tool. Navigate to that folder, select it, press control, go back to my list. Oh, I forgot to line down. There we go. So there's my next list. So let's go back to my auto objects. We're going to create an array with strings. I'm going to get rid of this one. I'm going to use double space delimiter, auto clip add, and we will, let me turn that on. The first item is calc, second item, Control C, third item, fourth item. Okay, programs list 2 is the name, clipboard, paste. Done with you. So there's our second list, our first list, second list, blah blah blah. Now we need to make sure that it's displaying that in our group box. So let's see, group box programs list 1. Okay, that's good. So everything, it should be displaying everything now. Now we just need to go into the subroutine and update that. So that is run program subroutine. It submits it, then it tries to run the program list to program whatever variable. So it's the first item, it runs the first item. Okay, like I said before with the edit down here, if any of these items that you're adding to this list, if you wanted it to be actually opening in edit mode, so for example, all of these are scripts, the last three items are scripts, that means I can open them up in edit mode. All I would do is before the beginning of it, I would just type edit space. And instead of it running that script, it'll open it in edit. Same with if you have image document, like if you're working with Photoshop documents, Microsoft Word documents, etc. If you just want to open it in edit mode, just type edit before the path. Okay, I think that's it. I think we're done. I think this is our program. So if we want to run the calculator, we hit calculator or hit run program, we get a calculator. If I want to run the auto object script, I hit run and I get the auto object script. If I want to do the GUI layout tool, I get the GUI layout tool. If I want to use the clipping tool, I get the clipping tool, etc., etc. Okay, that is it. And once again, if you want to do, if you've been running this for a week and you finally want to add something new to it, but you don't know where it is, you just unlock, hit edit, and it'll open up your editor. If you have Site and Site's the default editor, like I don't remember if you have to set Site to be the default editor, like set what happens when you run edit. Like I don't remember, it's been a couple of years since I've done this, so I don't know how blah 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 it all works, but if you open it in editing, whatever it normally does. So if you were to right click on it and then go to edit script, wherever that normally goes for you, that's where it's going to go. If it goes to Site, great. If not, whatever. It goes wherever it normally goes. And that is it. Don't forget, this one is available for free. No download. Just the link will be in the description. The link for a bunch of the different tools that I used during this video are in a playlist on my homepage, or a category on my homepage called scripts. So if you'd like to find the stopwatch, if you'd like to see the GUI builder, if you'd like to see the auto objects, etc., etc., a bunch of these things are listed in that, and you can get a copy of them. Anyways.